everyone, my name is Sarah Schickman, and I'm the managing partner of Lengea Law. And this presentation is about GLP-1 regulations and the latest updates. So it's about semaglutide, tirzepatide, compounding pharmacies, med spas, and wellness clinics, and what to do given the new status of these drugs. I've been practicing law for about 18 years. I run this healthcare law firm called Lengea. We work with lots of wellness, med spa, aesthetic clients, plastic surgeons, dermatologists. And we wanted to bring this presentation because we've been getting so many questions about this issue, and it's such an evolving topic. And joining me here is one of my associates, David Isaac, and David will introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Yes, as Sarah said, my name is David Isaac. I'm an associate here at Lengea. I've been an attorney now for a little over 13 years, focusing in healthcare regulatory and compliance issues. So certainly we've had a lot of clients reach out about GLP-1s and compounding, what they can and can't do. And it's a hot topic with a lot of sort of day-by-day changes. So we wanted to present this video with the most up-to-date news and regulations regarding compounded GLP-1 medications, specifically semaglutide and tirzepatide. So as many of you may or may not know, the FDA previously had semaglutide and tirzepatide on the shortage list, which basically means that there weren't enough name brand medications to serve the need for patients. In that case, the FDA was allowing compounding pharmacies to essentially make copies of the name brand drugs in order to fulfill the market need. In December of 2024, the FDA took one of these medications, tirzepatide, off of that shortage list, basically meaning that the name brand manufacturers had reported that they had enough dosages and enough medications to really serve the public need. Similarly, in February of 2025, the FDA took semaglutide, another GLP-1, off the shortage list. So taking those medications off the shortage list triggered a timeline by which the compounding pharmacies would have to ramp down and eventually stop producing the compounded versions of these medications.
And what happened after that is the pharmaceutical companies that were making these brand name drugs became very aggressive in enforcing their rights. So essentially, they are sending cease and desist letters to every practice that they can find that is still prescribing these compounded medications. So those are med spas, weight loss clinics, small practices. We've had some tiny clients who got these letters, and we've had some large 50-state clients who are also getting these letters. And the thing is that these big pharmaceutical companies have almost unlimited budgets for these things. So the letters are not just letters that you can throw in the garbage because there's a big legal team behind them. And so the way practices are doing their weight loss programs has to change.
Yeah, we've seen, Eli Lilly just this week, they sued Strive Pharmacy and Empower Pharmacy, large compounding pharmacies, for still producing tirzepatide. These pharmacies essentially had until March 19th to continue to produce the drugs. If they are now producing post that date, Eli Lilly has been very open and aggressive with their enforcement. So again, it's even if you're adding products to the compounded medications, such as vitamins, other medications, the manufacturers are still taking action and considering those to be copies of their name brand products. So again, whether it's cease and desist letters or outright lawsuits to pharmacies or med spas, everyone is at risk if they are continuing to provide compounded medications that are no longer on those FDA shortage list, such as tirzepatide.
Yeah, and the reason for that is there's big money behind this. And it always, sadly, you have to follow the money, and then you could really find like what's really happening. So these big pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly invested allegedly 3 to 5 billion developing these drugs, right? And they think that this is going to be their biggest drug of all time or close to it, like 50 billion over the next, let's say 10 years. So they are willing to put $1 billion toward legal fights, right? And for them, it doesn't cost much more to sue 10,000 practices as it does to sue 10 because it's the same lawsuit all over again. And you may say to yourself, well, we do, for example, compounded Kybella, right? We get it from the compounding pharmacy. And why isn't Allergan coming after us? And the reason, again, is because Kybella is not a big money maker for AbbVie or Allergan, right? If you were doing this with Botox or fillers, I'm sure you would get into big trouble from the companies. But if you're doing it with Kybella, because it's not a big money maker, it's kind of ignored a little bit. Whereas here, these companies are not going to ignore it because it's a huge money-making drug for them.
And the compounding pharmacies and their associated trade associations, they are fighting back on this. Drive Pharmacy, one of the companies that Eli Lilly sued this week, they sent out a letter to customers basically saying that not only is this just an attack on Strive Pharmacy, it's an attack on personalized medicine, patient choice, healthcare provider discretion, and basically saying that it's an example of big pharma kind of overstepping and prioritizing their profits over patients' care and patients' medical needs. So they're also, they're these pharmacy associations. They're taking the FDA to court. They're fighting back against the decisions to pull, Tirzepatide and Semaglutide off of the shortage list, and really trying to get, first of all, more clarity on what pharmacies and med spas and other clinics can and can't do, but also, for their purposes, ideally to either push those timelines out to where they can continue to produce the product or remove the restrictions altogether. So there are active lawsuits and attempts that are going through the courts right now. Plus, you're looking at potentially the FDA releasing new guidance or something like that. So there really are, there's a lot of moving pieces here. But sort of as the status quo today, really continuing to prescribe, produce, and purchase compound tirzepatide and soon semaglutide. It's putting clients and med spas and clinics really at potential risk of large lawsuits and other action from these manufacturers.
Yeah, and some companies have come out and said, well, if you just microdose these drugs, or if you add B12 to them, or if we get them in powder form or tablet form or some other form, that it kind of skirts the law, but it's not actually true. If you get an email from someone and they say, I'm willing to sell this to you, it's legal, don't worry, we just add X to it. I would say reply to the email and say, okay, will you defend me if I get into a lawsuit over this? And if they say yes, then maybe the legal risk to you is worth it. But I think after that, you may never hear from them again because they understand that maybe some people will take the bait and will go along and buy this stuff from them. But at the end of the day, you just have to understand it's very risky because at any moment, you can get sued by these big pharma companies, and they're not just going to stop at sending you a cease and desist. They will actually sue you. We've had a number of clients engaged in lawsuits with these companies, and clients are offering them settlements of 100,000, 200,000, and they're not settling. So it's a really big financial deal.
And so, the next question is, well, I own a clinic or a med spa or a telehealth weight management company. What do I do? And really, you have to kind of take a good look at certainly your GLP-1 medication, portfolio, see what you're doing and see what the potential risks are. As we've seen, you could have a massive lawsuit on your hands if you are continuing to prescribe these compounded medications and continuing to provide them to patients. Further, from a more sort of logistical standpoint, while there are pharmacies that are continuing to offer these products and whether or not they should is kind of a different question. You may run into issues where you're not really going to be able to find these compounded medications anymore, or at least not as easily as you could before, because there are pharmacies that are worried about getting into some sort of lawsuit or any other issues. So you're really going to have to examine your current portfolio of GLP-1 weight management and either transition patients to name brand products or potentially alternative treatment plans. But it really is a potential limited access to these drugs going forward.
Another thing to keep in mind is in your patient consents that you're using right now, make sure that you update your language about why you're prescribing these drugs and what the medical need is. So if you are giving somebody, for example, semaglutide with an addition of some other vitamin because that prevents them from getting nauseous, you want to document that in your software. But you also want to be careful. It's going to be hard to justify if 100 of your 100 patients all needed this extra supplement. If any kind of discovery happens, or if even a medical board investigation happens, they're going to request records. And if all your records say this, they're going to try to say that this was some kind of fraud. So there are some limited workarounds, but they're all extremely risky. And, some people have a super high appetite for risk, but here, because the pharmaceutical companies in particular have nearly unlimited budgets to fight this, I think it's a very risky proposition to continue. And the pharmaceutical companies have created these online portals where people can order these medications, and it is more expensive. I think the last I checked, it was about $500 a month. But you can restructure your weight loss program where it's a bundle of services and it includes this cost, and it's unfortunately going to be more expensive for the patient. But at the end of the day, you'll be able to sleep at night and know that you're protected. Whereas if you're continuing to do this, it's going to become riskier and riskier.
And a lot of the ways to kind of alleviate issues, especially on a patient relationship level, is just be open and communicate with your patients. Let them know, a sort of an idea as to what's going on, what your practice is doing in response to changing regulations, and let them know that you're going to be offering these different treatment packages, or you're going to be transitioning them, to the name brand products and things like that, as well as deadlines. As I said earlier. Really, Tirzepatide had until March 19th. These pharmacies had until March 19th to provide this drug and continue to compound. So really continuing to prescribe and offer Tirzepatide, from today, April 4th, going forward, that's a very risky proposition. Semaglutide has until May 22nd until the compounding pharmacies can no longer produce. So you still have a little bit of an off ramp here, but now's the time to speak with patients that are currently on semaglutide, or that were on tirzepatide, and you're sort of winding down their treatment plans there, and let them know of the new treatment options that you are offering. Again, whether it's alternative treatments, package weight loss plan, or transitioning onto the name brand products, and that'll alleviate a lot of the potential headaches when it comes to continuing to treat your patients with weight loss and weight management treatments.
So some of the key takeaways, right? These medications remain in limbo. So things can change. They can go back on the shortage list because the global demand is extremely high. So that's a possibility. You have to prioritize the FDA approved options. If you're going to continue to once in a while prescribe compounded drugs, you should still probably to at least 95% of your patients prescribe the brand name ones. It would still be very risky to continue to get the compounded ones at all, because what's going to happen is the big pharma companies are going to subpoena records from the compounding pharmacies. Maybe some compounding pharmacies will fight them and say no, but some compounding pharmacies will say, okay, we don't want to fight you. We're just going to give you everything, and your name may be on it, right? And so even if you yourself are doing this in a way where they don't see it online, they may find out through the compounding pharmacies. And also update your patient communications about this. We have some model communications, both for patients and updated consents that we have for Lengea members that we could send. But generally, make sure that your patients are informed that these changes are coming, because you don't want your patients to get upset at you. At the end of the day, it wasn't you, the provider, that changed this situation, right? So you want to be very clear about that as well.
Yeah, again, I mean, just be as proactive as possible. Certainly review any of your vendors, and make sure that you are doing the right thing in terms of using compound medications and obtaining them. But really be proactive with your patients. Let them know what's going on and what you are doing to continue their treatments, and make sure that they are continuing to receive the treatment and the care that they are used to with your clinic.
Well, I think that this was a really good talk about this subject. I mean, this talk itself is informational only. There's no attorney-client privilege, but if you wanted to do a consultation with us or wanted more information, contact us on our website, which is lengealaw.com, or by email, which is info@lengealaw.com. And thank you for listening to us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.